Lily Carter's breath came out in little ghosts that trembled and vanished in the unheated station. She sat on the wooden bench beneath a flickering timetable that hadn't changed in weeks, her knees pulled into her oversized coat, bare shins marbled blue with cold. With one finger, she traced the silver edge of a photograph, the only picture she had of her father, following the crease where time had bent his smile. Wind slid under the doors like a thief. Somewhere a pane rattled. The vending machine hummed a tired note, out of candy, out of mercy. Lily pressed the photo to the bench beside her instead of holding it. She liked seeing her father's face laid flat, as if he were sitting there, keeping her place warm. "I'll wait here," she whispered to the picture, and her stomach answered with a hollow ache. "Until you come back." Outside, the platform lights smudged the falling snow into a curtain. A train had passed 3 hours ago, the last one anyone remembered on this forgotten spur. The station master had stopped asking her questions. The few passengers who wandered through looked away, the way people look away from pain and hunger and tiny hands that should not be alone at midnight. From the far end of the platform came the soft, rhythmic pad of paws and the heavier tread of boots. They didn't barge in, they arrived the way warmth creeps toward a cold room. The sound before the fact, shape before the story. Lily looked up as a man stepped into the doorway, snow crystals burning on his beard like stars about to fall. His uniform coat was civilian, but he stood like a soldier stands, straight spine, steady eyes, chin tipped as if he could see farther than most. Beside him, a Belgian Malinois matched his body like a shadow, taught to love. The dog flicked an ear, nostrils testing the stale air, then turned to the man for a tiny nod. The man gave it. No words. Permission passed between them in a breath. "Evening," the man said softly, not wanting the word to startle the cold. "I'm Ethan." The dog settled on his haunches, gaze level with Lily's, not threatening, alert in a way that made the room feel guarded instead of watched. There was patience in that stare, and intelligence. Lily straightened without meaning to. "Is he a police dog?" she asked. Her voice cracked on dog, and she swallowed the slice of it like a lesson. "Retired K9, Ethan said. "Name's Rex." He crouched, slow and deliberate, so his face was on Lily's level. He didn't reach for her, didn't ask the dozen questions poised on his tongue. "You look cold." "I'm waiting," Lily said. "My dad told me if anything ever happened, I should wait by the last place he said goodbye." "The station?" "The bench." She tapped the wood and, as if to prove her steadiness, laid the photograph flat again and traced the fold with her nail. Rex leaned just enough for his shoulder to touch Ethan's leg. Ethan's gloved hand rested there, a quiet anchor. He slid the other hand into his coat and took out a small metal locket on a chain, old brass, thumb-worn, shiny, where 1,000 worries had polished it. He didn't open it. He didn't need to show what was inside for Lily to understand. "I do a little waiting myself," he said. "Not here, but I know the feeling." She looked at the locket like it was a candle and nodded, the motion tiny and brave. He shrugged off his outer coat and, with a question in his eyes, draped it over her shoulders. The coat swallowed her, gravity tugging the hem toward the floor. Heat had a smell, wool and snow and something like cedar, and it made her eyes sting worse than the wind. "Before we begin, let me know where you are watching from. Leave your country name in the comments below. And if you love stories about courage, loyalty, and community, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next stories." Rex lowered himself in a sphinx at Lily's feet, the fern tip of his tail brushing the leather of Ethan's boot. When the door breathed another draft, Rex lifted his head and placed it against the bench by Lily's knees, so the cold had to pass him first. She reached down, slow so she wouldn't startle him, and let her fingers rest in the thick fur at his neck. It was like touching the word safe. "Where's your mum?" Ethan asked gently. "She went to the city to find Dad," Lily said, eyes on the photo. or to find a job, or both. She said, "If the trains get weird, go to the bench and wait. Don't move. Not for anyone who doesn't know the secret word." "What's the secret word?" Lily's mouth twitched. "If I tell you, then anyone would know." Ethan accepted the rebuke like a gift. "Fair point." He stood and scanned the station. Not much to see. 2 benches, a dead kiosk, a metal trash bin thawed into a ring of coffee-stained slush. He moved the bin a few feet away, clearing a little space in front of the radiator that exhaled a tired breath now and then. "Rex," he said, a whisper disguised as a command. Rex rose, padded to the doorway, gave the snow a quick professional assessment, then returned with a shake that threw diamonds of melt to the tile. He sat facing the room, body between Lily and the world, ears relaxed but ready to stand. Ethan watched his dog, reading the invisible report. No immediate threat, recent human scent, restless air, storm turning. "Can I see?" Ethan asked, nodding toward the photograph. Lily hesitated, then nudged it toward him with 2 fingers. He picked it up carefully, as if the paper were a wing that could tear. A man there, a mechanic, maybe, or a builder, stood under a half-finished roof, smiling at the camera like he was promising something. The girl in the picture, smaller, gap-toothed, summer-browned, was on his shoulders, hands curled in his hair, as if steering the future. On the back, in blue ink, someone had written, "Hold fast, D." "Your dad looks like he knows how to make things last," Ethan said. "He said roofs and promises are the same," Lily murmured. "If you don't fix them, the rain gets in and ruins everything." "Smart man." Ethan slid the photo back, and Lily kept it on the bench where the lamplight could touch it. He took a breath that wanted to shake and made it a steady one instead. "You eaten?" She shook her head. He opened his pack and set out an MRE like a magician making a coin appear. Not much, but warm, and that mattered. He didn't tear it open. He passed her the packet, its little chemistry heating bag beginning to puff. "You can do it," he said. "You ever—" "I watched a video," she said, and the ghost of pride crossed her face. She activated the heater, waited for the whisper of steam, then cupped the packet in her hands like a tiny stove had crawled into her palms to apologize for winter. While she ate, Ethan moved with that careful economy he'd learned over years. No wasted motion, every act a kindness that tried not to call attention to itself. He tested the station door, wedged it with a strip of rubber so it wouldn't rattle so loud, rolled a newspaper into a pillow for Lily's back. He didn't ask if she had somewhere else to go. 1,000 small truths in the room had already answered him. "Why are you here?" Lily asked finally, eyes lifting. "You and Rex." Ethan weighed his answer. "We check on places the world forgets," he said. "People slip through cracks. We look into cracks." "Did someone send you?" "Sometimes. Tonight it was a feeling." He didn't say faith. He didn't say prayer. But he felt the outline of both in the space between his ribs. Lily finished half the meal and nudged the rest toward him. "Share," she said. "Dad says people eat better when they share." Ethan smiled, small and surprised. "Your dad sounds like a good man." "He is," she said, and then, as if the proof were living inside her, she rested her palm on her chest. Snow found a rhythm outside, hardening from flakes to 1,000 small needles. The wind gathered itself and tested the station's bones. Somewhere far down the track, a horn blew, not a train, but the long, mournful call of something big trudging its duty through weather. Rex's ears pricked, then eased back. He looked up at Ethan, mouth closed, pupils rounding a fraction. Ethan read it the way you read a friend's face. "Storm's thickening," Ethan said. "We'll need to decide soon." Lily shook her head. "I promised." "Promising's good," Ethan said, and he felt the locket press his sternum like a memory trying to speak. "But sometimes you keep the promise in a smarter way." "How do you keep it smarter?" "You hold fast," he said, rubbing the brass with his thumb. "But you don't stand under a leaking roof to prove you're brave." She considered this, small brows pulled tight. "If we move, how will Dad find me?" "He'll look for you," We'll leave a sign. Ethan turned the locket in his hand like a compass. We'll make sure anyone who loves you can read it. Rex shifted, paws whispering on tile. His gaze cut to the door. This time, he didn't relax. Ethan's spine changed the way a field changes when wind crosses it. He gestured 2 fingers and the dog rose, silent, alert, muscles gathering without show. "What is it?" Lily whispered. "Maybe nothing," Ethan murmured, but his body said otherwise. He angled himself between the bench and the doorway, becoming a wall that didn't feel like a trap. He nodded toward the radiator. "Stay here. Hand on Rex. If I move, you duck." She slid her fingers deeper into Rex's fur, and the dog leaned his weight into her hand, grounding her to the earth. From the platform came the first sound, a crunch, slow and deliberate, the sound boots make when they want to be heard. Then a second. Then the hard snap of a flashlight beam cutting the snow. Rex's lips didn't lift. He didn't growl, but the breath humming in his chest turned from a lullaby into a low engine waiting for a road. Somewhere beyond the door, a man's voice barked a command Lily couldn't make out. Another voice answered, sharp, impatient. A metal latch rattled, too close. Ethan didn't look back, but he lowered his hand toward Lily, palm open, and she felt the invitation in it, the wordless promise that whatever came next, he would meet it first. The flashlight beam slid along the window, found the closed sign, then moved to the door handle as if it already knew the way. Snow hissed, the knob turned, Rex went perfectly still. Lily drew the photo closer, not to clutch it, but to lay it flat, face up, so her father could see what was happening. The door began to open. The door groaned against the storm as it opened, snow spilling across the tile like an invading tide. The beam of the flashlight cut through the dim waiting room and landed squarely on Ethan's chest. He didn't flinch. Rex stood poised at his leg, every muscle sculpted into silence, his body a question mark, waiting for the answer. "Identify yourself!" a man barked. His silhouette filled the doorway, broad, rigid, his coat stamped with the sharp shoulders of authority. A second figure loomed behind him, holding another light, both beams shaking snowflakes into glitter. Ethan raised a steady hand, palm out. "Name's Ethan Cole, former service, just passing through." The second man's light darted across the room, found Lily, and froze. "What's this?" he demanded. "A child." Lily straightened on the bench, but kept her hand buried in Rex's fur, her small body trembling, but her eyes locked steady. "I'm waiting for my dad," she said, her voice firmer than the storm outside. The first man stepped in, boots thudding hard. "This station is condemned after midnight. Nobody's supposed to be here. And a minor—" He cut himself short, scanning Ethan with suspicion. "Why is she with you?" "She was already here," Ethan said evenly. His tone was neither defensive nor apologetic. It was a soldier's report, direct, clipped, unshaken. "Alone, I didn't leave her." The second man snorted. "Convenient." He flicked his light toward Lily again. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Lily hugged Ethan's coat tighter. "Lily Carter. Where are your parents?" She swallowed, eyes darting to her photograph, then back. "My mum's looking for work. My dad's coming back." She tapped the photo with one tiny finger. "He promised." The first man shifted, muttering something to his partner. Ethan caught the words. Runaway, custody, social services. Rex's ear twitched. A soft vibration rumbled in his chest, not a growl, not yet, but the first note of a warning hymn. Ethan placed 2 fingers against Rex's shoulder. "Calm, boy. Hold." "You'll need to come with us," the second man said, stepping forward. "The girl can't stay here. It's not safe. We'll take her into custody until her situation is sorted." The word custody hit Lily like a slap. She shook her head violently. "No, I promised. I promised my dad I'd stay right here. If he comes back and I'm gone, he won't know where to find me." Her voice cracked. raw and pleading, and in that sound Ethan felt a fissure tear open inside his chest. He remembered nights crouched in deserts, waiting for convoys that never came. The ache of promises broken by fate, by orders, by death itself. The men were unmoved. "Kid, your dad's not here," the first said. "We'll find a place for you. Warm bed, meal, paperwork." "No!" Lily's voice was a knife through the cold. She clutched the photo flat against the bench, her whole small body braced as if she could anchor herself there forever. He said, "Don't move." He said, "Wait. He'll come back." Her words cracked something deeper than bone. Ethan felt it ripple through him like shrapnel. His breath hitched, his knees buckled slightly, and he gripped the edge of the bench for balance. Rex, sensing his falter, pressed closer, head brushing Ethan's hip, a silent reminder. "You're not alone." Ethan's throat closed, his vision blurred, not from the storm, not from fatigue, from the unbearable echo of his own daughter's face, gone these many years, and the last promise he'd whispered over her photograph before deployment. Daddy will come back. A promise he'd never fulfilled. The room tilted. For the first time since the war, Ethan Cole, soldier of steel and scars, felt his legs weaken. He collapsed onto the bench beside Lily, one hand pressed over his face. His breath came ragged, and the girl, so fragile, so fierce, leaned toward him and whispered through the storm, through the suspicion, through the brokenness of the world, "I'll wait here until my dad comes back." The words were simple. The words were everything. Rex whined low and curled against them both, his body folding like a shield, as if to keep those words alive. Outside, the storm roared harder, rattling glass, swallowing the tracks, hiding everything in white. The two men exchanged glances, irritation, confusion, but something in Ethan's broken posture, something in Lily's trembling defiance, held them at the threshold, unsure. For in that moment, the bench was no longer a forgotten seat in a condemned station. It was sacred ground, where a child's faith collided with a soldier's wounds, and where a dog kept watch like heaven's sentinel. And the danger waiting in the storm had only just begun to reveal itself. The storm pressed its weight against the station, howling like some furious spirit trying to claw its way inside. Snow curled through the crack in the door and melted into dark streaks on the tile. The two officials, or maybe they were officers, though their uniforms bore no insignia, hovered with stiff impatience, as if torn between duty and discomfort. Ethan forced himself upright, the ghost of his collapse still clinging to his shoulders. Rex leaned into him once more, grounding him, a silent oath that his body wouldn't betray him twice. He squared himself, soldier again, though inside his chest the words of the child still burned. "I'll wait here until my dad comes back." "I'm not leaving her with strangers in a storm," Ethan said, his voice rough but steady. The first man narrowed his eyes. "You don't get a choice, Cole. Regulations are clear. Minors can't—" "Regulations don't mean a thing if she freezes to death on the way," Ethan cut in. "You drag her out in this weather, you'll be carrying her, not guiding her." The man's jaw worked. He glanced at the snow, the drifting sheets swallowing the tracks, the ice forming at the edge of the platform. His partner muttered something under his breath, something about paperwork, liability. Lily's hand gripped Ethan's sleeve, small fingers tight as wire. She shook her head, eyes pleading not with the men, but with Ethan. "Don't let them take me," she whispered. "Please, I promised. Daddy said wait." Her voice was a tremor that cracked the frozen wall inside him. Ethan knew too well what happened when promises were broken by those who should have kept them. His locket burned hot against his chest, the memory of a promise he had shattered long ago. Rex's body stiffened, his ears shot forward, nose twitching. He let out a low rumble that vibrated against the floor. His gaze wasn't fixed on the two men anymore. It had slid to the platform beyond them. Ethan followed the dog's eyes. Through the whirling snow he saw it, a shadow moving, not the clumsy sway of a drunk, nor the sharp gait of a soldier, but something heavier, staggered. The silhouette swayed closer, then vanished, then appeared again. The wind carried a sound, a dragging, crunching step. "What's out there?" Lily asked, her voice a breath. The officers turned, raising their flashlights toward the storm. The beams sliced into white walls of snow, but the figure remained, half hidden, stumbling forward. "Could be someone lost," one muttered. Or he didn't finish. The first man clicked off his light with a curse. "We don't have time for this. Girl comes with us, now." He reached toward Lily. Rex snapped, teeth flashing, the growl erupting like thunder. His body blocked the bench in one swift, fluid movement, fur bristling, tail rigid as steel. The officer stumbled back, hand clutching air. Ethan rose, his full frame towering now, no longer collapsing but commanding. "You lay one hand on her, and you answer to me." His voice carried a weight that wasn't just threat. It was the weight of a man who had nothing left to lose but his honor. The storm roared again, rattling the station's walls. The shadow outside staggered closer. For a heartbeat, the wind parted, and Ethan caught a glimpse. A man in tattered clothing, face half frozen, eyes wild with hunger and confusion. He clutched something metallic, an iron bar maybe, or a weapon. Ethan's gut turned. This wasn't just a storm anymore. Danger had stepped out of the snow. The two officers saw it too, their postures snapping rigid. "What the hell?" one gasped. The figure's head jerked toward the light spilling from the station. With a guttural cry, he lunged forward, bar raised, storm swirling behind him like a cloak. "Down!" Ethan barked. Rex launched into motion, a streak of muscle and fury. Lily dove against the bench, arms over her head, whispering a prayer she didn't even realize she knew. The door slammed wide as the figure crashed through the threshold, snow exploding inward, and the waiting room became a battlefield where promises, fears, and salvation collided in one breath. The intruder's entrance was like a storm within the storm. Snow flung wide, metal bar swinging, a guttural roar tearing through the stale air of the station. The fluorescent lights above buzzed and flickered as if even the electricity recoiled. Rex struck first. He launched with the precision of a lifetime's training, teeth flashing, body angled not to kill, but to disarm. His jaws clamped onto the man's forearm before the bar could land its blow. The impact rattled, the weapon clanging against the floor, spinning into a corner. The man screamed, a raw, torn sound that rattled the hollow bones of the station. He twisted, thrashing against the dog's grip, but Rex held steady, weight leveraged, eyes blazing with the fierce loyalty of a soldier's partner. "Hold him!" Ethan commanded, moving in fast. His own hands, scarred from years of combat, closed on the man's shoulders and slammed him against the wall. Not brutal, controlled, not cruelty, survival. The two officers fumbled, one reaching for his radio, the other raising his flashlight like a club, uncertain whether to swing at the attacker or at the animal. "Stand down!" Ethan barked, his voice carrying the authority of a man who had led squads into chaos before. "Rex has him!" Lily peeked from under the bench, eyes wide, tiny fists clenched around the photograph. She whispered to herself over and over, "Hold fast! Hold fast!" The intruder's face was gaunt, streaked with grime, lips cracked from cold. His eyes were wild but not empty, eyes of a man long lost to desperation. He spat words through the pain, half incoherent. "Food? Shelter? Mine!" His gaze darted to the heating meal Lily had left half-finished, steam still curling. Ethan felt the man's ribs heave beneath his grip. Not a trained enemy, not a soldier, just a soul broken by hunger and the storm. Still dangerous, but in another life he might have been any father, any brother. "Easy," Ethan said, voice low, firm. "You're not dying tonight, you hear me? You don't have to fight." The officers, emboldened by Ethan's control, moved in to cuff the man. One snarled, "Crazy vagrant, should have been locked up long ago." "Don't treat him like trash," Ethan shot back. His eyes were cold steel. "He's still human." Rex's growl softened as Ethan's hand brushed the dog's neck, signaling release. Slowly, Rex unclamped but he didn't back away. His body stayed pressed against the man's leg, a sentinel of obedience and warning. The intruder sagged, sobbing now, the fight gone out of him. His body shook, not just from fear, but from starvation and cold. Ethan saw it. He remembered it. Prisoners of war, civilians caught in crossfire, eyes begging for what mouths could no longer ask. "Get him food," Ethan ordered. "Now!" The officers hesitated. "That's not procedure. Now!" Something in his tone allowed no debate. One of them muttered and grabbed the remains of the MRE, shoving it toward the man. He devoured it with trembling hands, every bite a prayer to survival. The storm outside slammed harder, rattling the window panes like fists. Snow piled high against the door, sealing them in. Ethan glanced at Lily. She hadn't cried, not once. But her face was pale, lips pressed tight, her little hands still gripping the photo as though it was the last tether to her world. He crouched by her, his knees cracking as he sank to her level. "You all right?" Her chin trembled. She nodded once, then whispered, "That man? He just wanted food?" "Yeah," Ethan said softly. "Sometimes hunger makes people do things they'd never do if they weren't empty inside." She studied the intruder, then looked back at Ethan. Daddy used to give his lunch away to the guys who had less. She glanced down at Rex, who rested his heavy head on her knees. "He said a full belly can keep the dark away." Ethan felt his chest tighten, the locket pressing like a wound. A whisper of memory, his own daughter offering him half her cookie before deployment, smiling. "You'll need this more than me, Daddy." For a second his vision blurred again. He forced it clear. The officers finished restraining the man, more out of protocol than necessity. He was limp now, docile, chewing each bite like it was salvation. "Storm's locking us in," one officer muttered, checking his watch. "Radio's down too. We're stuck." Ethan exhaled slowly. He glanced around the station, the rattling windows, the failing heat, the child clutching faith, the broken man shivering in cuffs, the loyal dog at his side, a fragile ecosystem of the forgotten. And the storm was only getting worse. He leaned back against the bench, staring at the photograph Lily kept flat on the wood. The father's smile seemed to pierce him, demanding something unspoken. "Hold fast!" A doll tumbled from Lily's bag as she shifted, threadbare, one button eye missing. It rolled across the floor and came to rest at Ethan's boot. He bent, picked it up gently and held it out. Lily's eyes softened. "She was my birthday present, the last one Dad gave me." Ethan froze, doll in hand, memory slamming into him like a bullet. His daughter's stuffed bear, left behind on the morning he shipped out, waiting forever on her pillow. His breath hitched. For the second time that night, Ethan Cole, the soldier who had never bowed, felt the weight of memory press his chest into silence. He gripped the doll tighter than he meant to. The storm screamed outside, drowning the world, as inside the forgotten station, a soldier, a girl, and a dog clung to fragments of love and promises too heavy to break. And in that moment, Ethan knew. The night wasn't done testing them. The station groaned under the storm's assault. Wind screamed through every crack, shaking the glass panes until they warbled like frightened voices. Snow piled against the doors, burying them deeper with every gust, as if the world outside was determined to erase this lonely place. Ethan sat with Lily tucked beside him, Rex curled at her feet like a living fortress. The intruder, the starving man they had subdued, slumped in a corner now, wrists loosely bound, chewing the last crumbs of his stolen meal. His breathing had steadied, the madness in his eyes dimmed to exhaustion. The two officers lingered by the doorway, pacing like caged wolves, muttering about paperwork and when this blows over. But Ethan's focus was somewhere else. His gaze had locked onto the doll in his hands, the one Lily had dropped. The doll's threadbare face and missing eye were a mirror to his own memory. The stuffed bear his daughter Claire had begged him to fix the night before deployment. He never got the chance. The next morning, He had kissed her forehead, promised her he'd be back, and left the bear abandoned on her pillow. He had never returned. He tightened his grip on the doll, the locket pressing hot against his chest, and for a moment the past and present blurred, his daughter's voice overlapping with Lily's. "Don't forget me, Daddy!" Rex shifted, sensing the storm in his master's chest. The dog nosed Ethan's knee, pressing close, his warmth pulling Ethan back to the moment. Lily's small hand brushed the doll from his grip. She hugged it to her chest and whispered, "It's okay. She doesn't like strangers holding her too long." The innocence of it cracked him wide open. Ethan swallowed hard and forced a nod. "You're right. She's safer with you." For a long moment, silence hung in the room. Just the storm, the rattle of the window, and the intruder's weary breaths. Then Lily spoke again, her voice barely louder than the wind. "Do you think God hears promises?" The question pierced through Ethan's armor. He turned, finding her eyes, the kind of eyes that still believed miracles could fit into the cracks of despair. He hesitated. Faith was a language he hadn't spoken since he buried his wife and child. But Lily waited, her fragile trust like a candle trembling in the dark. "I think," Ethan began, his throat thick, "I think sometimes he hears them even louder when they're whispered by the people who need them most." Lily hugged the doll tighter. "Then maybe he's listening to mine." Before Ethan could answer, Rex's ears shot up. His body stiffened, hackles rising like a tide. He growled low, deep, the sound vibrating against the floor. The officers snapped alert. "What now?" one muttered, hand sliding toward his sidearm. The intruder stirred, fear cutting through his hunger. "Not me," he rasped. "Something else." A sharp crack echoed outside, wood splintering or ice giving way. Then came footsteps, not one pair, multiple, heavy, deliberate, crunching through snow with the weight of intent. Ethan's instincts flared. He stood, scanning the door, muscles coiling for whatever waited beyond. Rex moved with him, silent, focused, eyes like burning coals. Lily's whisper broke the silence. "They're coming." The officers drew their flashlights again, beams slicing across the snow-streaked windows. Shadows flickered, figures circling the station, half seen through the blizzard. One officer cursed under his breath. "Could be looters. Storms like this bring out scavengers." The other adjusted his grip on the flashlight like it was a weapon. "If they're armed, we're done." Ethan lowered into a crouch, his body between Lily and the door. His voice was calm, steel wrapped in quiet fire. "Stay low, don't move until I say." Lily nodded, clutching her doll and photograph together now, her lips moving in silent prayer. The intruder muttered something, half warning, half plea. "Not safe. They take everything. They don't leave witnesses." Ethan's blood ran cold. He had seen men like that before, in deserts and alleys across the world. He knew the look of desperate packs feeding on weakness. The first thud hit the door, rattling it against its hinges. Then another. A voice shouted through the storm, rough, demanding, sharp as a knife. "Open up!" Rex bared his teeth, the growl deepening. His entire body became a coiled spring, waiting for Ethan's signal. The officers backed up, nerves breaking through their bravado. One whispered, "We can't hold them if they come in." Ethan's jaw set. His pulse hammered, not with fear, but with decision. He touched the locket at his chest, felt the brass heat under his palm, and whispered to himself, "Hold fast." He looked at Lily, her small frame braced against the bench, her faith burning brighter than fear. And for the first time in years, Ethan believed maybe promises could still be kept. Another slam shook the door. Wood cracked, snow burst through the seams. The men outside were coming in. And Ethan Cole knew tonight he wasn't just a soldier. Tonight he was a father again. The door buckled under another blow, the hinges screeching in protest. The storm roared behind it like a conspirator, urging the intruders onward. Ethan positioned himself between the bench and the doorway, knees bent, eyes sharp. Rex crouched low beside him, every muscle taut, a growl rumbling like distant thunder. Lily pressed herself against the bench, clutching her doll and photograph in both hands. Her lips moved without sound, whispering to the only one she believed could hear her now. God, don't let Daddy forget me. Don't let him forget his promise. The first officer fumbled with his radio again, static, spitting back at him. No signal! We're cut off! His partner swore, flashlight beam jittering across the shaking door. A final crash sent the wood splitting, and the door swung wide, snow spraying into the room. 3 figures stumbled inside, wrapped in torn coats and scarves, eyes glittering with desperation. One carried a crowbar, another a knife, the third nothing but rage in his clenched fists. "Supplies!" the first man snarled, his eyes darting to the half-empty meal packet, the blankets, the radiator, humming its tired warmth. "Hand it over, now." The officers stepped back, fear plain in their posture. Their authority uniforms meant nothing here, not against hunger, sharpened into violence. Ethan stood his ground. "There's nothing here worth your lives." His voice was level, calm, but carried an edge honed by combat. The crowbar wielder sneered. "We'll decide what's worth it." His gaze flicked to Lily, and his smile turned cruel. "What's this? A little bird in the storm?" Ethan moved before the thought could finish. He stepped forward, locket pressed against his chest, and his voice cracked like a rifle shot. "You don't take one step toward her." Rex growled, teeth bared, body a living weapon waiting for release. The looter with the knife hesitated, taking in the soldier's stance, the dog's coiled fury. But the leader, crowbar raised, laughed. "You think that mutt and your war stories scare me? This storm's ours. This station's ours. Everything in it is ours." He lunged. Ethan met him halfway, slamming his forearm against the man's wrist, knocking the crowbar aside. Rex launched at the second attacker, jaws snapping around his knife arm, dragging him to the floor. The room exploded into chaos, grunts, metal clanging, the storm's howl, echoing the fight. The third man lunged toward the bench, reaching for Lily. She screamed, curling around her photograph. Ethan caught the sound like a blade to the chest. With a roar, he threw his attacker aside and charged, tackling the man before he could touch her. They crashed to the floor, Ethan's fist driving into the man's chest, once, twice, until his breath wheezed out in surrender. The officers scrambled, finally joining the fight, one wrenching the crowbar away, the other pinning the knife wielder once Rex had forced him down. Breathless, Ethan shoved himself up, blood from a split lip tracing his chin. He scanned, Lily untouched, Rex standing guard, the intruders groaning in defeat. Relief surged, sharp as pain. Then he saw it. Lily's doll had fallen again, rolling across the floor to land in the snow, blown in through the broken door. She gasped and scrambled to reach it, but Ethan moved faster. He snatched the doll from the snow, cradling it carefully before placing it back in her arms. "Hold fast," he whispered, echoing the words written on her father's photo. Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she smiled, nodding. "I did." The looters, bound now by the officers' belts and rope, scavenged from the kiosk, cursed under their breath. One spat. "This storm will bury you all. Nobody's coming." Ethan wiped the blood from his lip, meeting the man's eyes with a stare that burned. "Then we'll dig out together, because that's what family does." The word family hung in the air, strange and sacred. Lily leaned against him, the doll pressed to her chest, and for the first time, Ethan didn't flinch from the weight of it. Rex settled at their feet, tail thumping once against the floor. He had felt it too, a shift in the storm, not outside but inside. The officers muttered about transport and reinforcements, but Ethan barely heard them. His mind was on the girl who refused to break, on the dog who refused to leave, on the ghost of his own child whispering through Lily's faith. For the first time in years, Ethan felt something crack open in his chest. Not pain, not loss, something small and stubborn like light bleeding through a shattered wall. A miracle whispered into the storm. The night wasn't over. The danger wasn't gone. But Ethan knew as he pressed the locket to his chest and Lily's tiny hand wrapped around his sleeve that healing didn't mean erasing the past, it meant building the future together. And the first stone had just been laid. The storm pinned them inside the station like prisoners. Snow rose against the windows, sealing the glass with white walls that muffled every sound. The heater sputtered and coughed, struggling to push back the cold that crept in with relentless fingers. The officers had secured the looters with rope stripped from an abandoned luggage cart. They huddled in the corner now, muttering curses, eyes filled with the simmering resentment of men denied their prize. The earlier intruder, the starving one, sat nearby, shivering but silent, his hunger dulled for the moment, his gaze hollow with shame. Ethan paced the room slowly, eyes cataloguing every weakness, the broken door, the failing heater, the dwindling supplies. Rex shadowed his movements, nails clicking softly on the tile, never straying too far from Lily, who sat on the bench hugging her doll and photograph as though they were holy relics. The cold was worsening. Ethan could see it in Lily's lips, faintly blue. He crouched beside her, draping the edge of his coat tighter around her shoulders. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his voice gentler now. She pressed her cheek into the doll's threadbare head. "I'm okay. Daddy said the cold can't win if you keep your hope warm." Ethan's chest tightened. Hope warm. It was the kind of phrase only a father desperate to protect could invent. He touched the locket through his shirt, whispering inwardly to the family he had lost. Did I ever teach Claire words like that? Did she believe me the way this little one believes her father? Rex placed his head on Lily's knees, letting her fingers tangle in his fur. She stroked him absently, and the steady warmth of the dog calmed the tremor in her hands. The officers argued quietly near the corner. Ethan overheard fragments. "We should have left. Can't protect a kid. Storm could last days." He ignored them. Instead, he dug into his pack, pulling out a small thermal blanket. He shook it open and wrapped it around Lily, tucking the edges tight like a soldier setting camp. "Better?" he asked. Her smile was small but true. "Like a cocoon." "Good," Ethan said, and he surprised himself with the faintest smile tugging at his lips. Cocoons mean something new comes out stronger. The starving intruder lifted his head then, voice cracked but earnest. "Storm like this takes more than food, takes faith." His words wavered, but something in them rang with truth. Lily turned to him, her eyes soft instead of afraid. "I prayed already. God heard me." The man's lips trembled, as if he had forgotten what prayer felt like. The officers scoffed. "Prayer won't get us through this. We need transport, reinforcements, something real." Ethan turned, his voice calm but edged. "Sometimes the only thing real enough to keep you breathing is faith." Silence followed, broken only by the heater's dying wheeze. Rex suddenly lifted his head, ears pricked, nose twitching. He padded to the broken door, sniffing the edges, his body stiffened, tail stiff and rigid. "What is it, boy?" Ethan asked, moving closer. The answer came in the sound, the groan of shifting weight, not the storm, but the roof. Snow piled heavy, pressing down, bending the beams with a creak that raised every hair on Ethan's neck. "Roof's not going to hold," Ethan muttered. He turned sharply to the officers. "We need to move into the storage room, back walls reinforced." The officers hesitated. "We can't move the prisoners." "You want them buried alive?" Ethan snapped. "Move, now!" He scooped Lily into his arms, blanket and all. She gasped, but clung tight, the doll squashed between them. Rex bounded ahead, already checking the path, tail a flag of urgency. The starving man staggered to his feet, wrists still bound. "Please, don't leave me." Ethan paused, eyes hard. He could have left him. Some might say he should. But Lily's voice from earlier echoed, "Daddy said a full belly keeps the dark away." "No one's left behind," Ethan said firmly. He nodded to the officers. "Untie him, help him walk." They grumbled but obeyed, dragging the weakened man upright. The looters cursed, thrashing in their bonds, but there was no time to argue. The roof gave another warning crack. Snow sifted through a gap, dusting the floor like ash. "Move!" Ethan barked. They hustled toward the storage room, Rex darting ahead to nose the door open. Inside, the space was cramped but sturdier, lined with old crates and metal beams. Ethan set Lily down gently on a pile of burlap sacks, wrapping the blanket tighter around her. Rex curled immediately at her side, pressing warmth into her bones. The officers shoved the captives into a corner, muttering about lost control. Ethan ignored them. He sank against the wall near Lily, chest heaving, listening as the roof outside groaned again under the storm's fury. For a moment silence pressed heavy. Then Lily whispered, almost to herself, "You came when I needed you most. Maybe you were sent." Ethan looked at her, the words striking deep. Sent, not accident, not chance. He touched his locket, thumb circling its worn brass. For the first time in years, the thought didn't sting. Instead, it felt like maybe, just maybe, there was still a purpose for him beyond his grief. He closed his eyes, the storm pounding above them, and whispered back, "Maybe I was." And in that fragile, fleeting moment, hope warmed the room more than the broken heater ever could. The storm raged like a living beast above them, shaking the roof, groaning against the walls. Every creak sounded like a countdown, every gust another hammer blow from the sky. The storage room was dark, save for the faint glow of a single flashlight propped on a crate, its beams stretching shadows across the walls like restless ghosts. Ethan sat against the cold metal, his locket clutched in one hand, the other resting on Rex's back. Lily leaned against his shoulder, wrapped in the thermal blanket, her doll squished between them. Her breaths were shallow but steady, the kind of calm born not from safety, but from trust. The officers whispered furiously in the corner, their fear leaking through every word. The bound looters muttered curses, promising revenge, while the once starving man sat silently, eyes shut, as if praying. Ethan's mind wasn't in the room. It was with Claire, his daughter, lost to time and war. He could almost feel her small hand in his, could hear her laugh, see her running down the driveway with that stuffed bear he never fixed. The memory cut, but for the first time in years it didn't bleed bitterness. Instead, it ached with something else, longing for a second chance. Lily stirred beside him. "You're quiet," she whispered. He blinked, pulling himself back to her. "Just thinking." "About your little girl?" Ethan froze. She had seen it. The way his eyes softened when she spoke of fathers, the way his hand lingered on her doll. Children notice things adults bury. "Yes," he admitted softly. Her name was Claire. "What happened to her?" The question speared him. He swallowed hard, the truth heavy on his tongue. "I made a promise I couldn't keep. I told her I'd come back. But I didn't. Not in time." Lily's brow furrowed. "But you're here now. Maybe you get another chance." Her words cracked something in him. Another chance. The storm outside roared, but inside Ethan felt the faintest light flicker. He looked at her, the fierce way she held onto her father's photo, the faith that hadn't wavered even as the world caved around her. She wasn't just waiting for her father, she was teaching him what it meant to hold fast, to hope against the storm. Rex lifted his head then, ears sharp, nose twitching. A low growl hummed in his chest. "What is it, boy?" Ethan asked. The dog padded to the door, posture stiff, tail rigid. A moment later came the sound, boots crunching outside the storage room, not from the storm this time, but deliberate, heavy, too measured to be looters. The officers stiffened, one grabbing the flashlight. "Someone's here." The bound looters smirked. "Told you, our boys don't leave us behind." Ethan's stomach turned. Reinforcements, not rescue. The doorknob rattled, a voice growled through the wood. "Open up. We know you've got them in there. Hand over the supplies and nobody gets hurt." Rex snarled, a low warning that vibrated through the room. Lily pressed closer to Ethan, clutching her doll and whispering, Don't let them take me, please. Ethan's heart hammered. He glanced at the officers, one pale, the other trembling. They weren't built for this. If anyone was going to protect Lily, it was him. He rose slowly, pressing his hand to Rex's neck to steady the dog. He touched the locket once more, feeling its warmth against his chest, then looked down at Lily. Her eyes were wide but brave, shimmering with faith that someone would keep her safe. This was the moment. He could either break again or become what she needed. He crouched, his eyes locked with hers. I promised Claire I'd come back, and I failed her. But I'm not failing you, Lily. Not tonight. Do you hear me? Her small hand wrapped around his fingers. I hear you. The door shook with another pounding blow. Snow dust rained from the ceiling. Ethan drew a deep breath, straightened to his full height, and let the soldier within him rise, not the broken man haunted by loss, but the protector forged by love. Rex, he whispered. The dog's ears pricked, body taut with anticipation. Guard. The door splintered, voices shouting, and Ethan Cole stepped forward, ready to give everything. Not because of orders, not because of duty, but because salvation sometimes comes when one broken man chooses to stand for another's child. The storm howled louder, as if the world itself was watching the test. The door burst inward with a deafening crack, splinters flying like shrapnel. A blast of snow swirled into the cramped storage room, followed by 3 more intruders, heavier armed than the last, 2 with makeshift bats, 1 with a pistol clutched in shaking hands. Their eyes gleamed with hunger and rage, shadows of men long stripped of mercy. "Hand it over!" one bellowed, his voice cracking through the storm. "Food, heat, everything, or we'll take the girl." Lily gasped, clutching the doll and photograph so tightly her knuckles whitened. "Ethan!" He stepped in front of her, body a shield. Rex crouched low and ready at his side. The officers staggered back, panic scrawled across their faces. They weren't soldiers, they weren't prepared for this. But Ethan was. His voice thundered over the storm. "You'll touch no one here, not her, not anyone." The man with the gun sneered, lifting it higher. "One shot, soldier, that's all it takes." Ethan's hand drifted to his locket, steadying himself with the weight of memory. "Claire, watch me now. I won't fail this one." "Think carefully," Ethan said, his voice calm, ice over steel. "You've been cold, hungry, desperate, but you're still alive. You cross this line, you won't walk out." Rex snarled, teeth flashing, his body a hair trigger away from launch. The gunman's finger twitched, hesitation, fear. He hadn't pulled a trigger before. Ethan saw it, knew it. This was bluff, desperation dressed as violence. Still danger sang in the air. Ethan moved. With one motion he knocked the pistol upward. The shot, exploding into the ceiling, plaster raining down. Rex launched, slamming into the gunman's chest, dragging him down in a tangle of snow and screams. The other 2 lunged. Ethan blocked the first swing of a bat with his forearm, pain shooting up his bone, but he pushed through it, driving his fist into the man's ribs. The looter crumpled, air punched from his lungs. The second swung wild, catching Ethan across the shoulder. He staggered, vision flashing, but then Lily's cry pierced through him. "Ethan!" Strength surged from a place deeper than muscle. He gripped the bat mid-swing, wrenched it free, and sent the man sprawling to the floor. Silence fell but for the storm's roar. The intruders groaned, defeated, disarmed. Rex stood over the gunman, growling low, jaws hovering a breath from his throat. Ethan breathed hard, sweat freezing against his skin, his body screaming with old wounds awakened, but he was still standing. More than that, he had protected her. Lily's eyes shone with tears as she rushed forward, doll clutched in one hand, photograph in the other. She pressed herself against him, tiny arms wrapping around his waist. "You didn't let them take me. You kept the promise." The words broke him open. His throat closed, his eyes stung, and for the first time in years, Ethan let the tears come. He dropped to his knees, pulling her close, the dolls squished between them, Rex pressing his head against both as if sealing the vow. "You're safe," Ethan whispered, voice shaking. "I swear to you, Lily, you're safe now, and I won't leave you, not ever." The officers, shaken but alive, began tying the new captives with whatever rope remained. The starving man in the corner bowed his head, whispering thanks that sounded like prayer. The storm outside began to ease, its roar dimming to a weary howl. Dawn pressed faint light against the snow-glazed windows, painting the wreckage in silver. Lily lifted her father's photograph to the glass, letting the first light touch his face. "See, Daddy," she whispered. "I waited, and someone came." Ethan's heart twisted, but this time not from regret, from something fierce, something whole. He laid his locket on the bench beside her photo, brass beside paper, two promises side by side. Healing wasn't erasing the past, it was building a future from its broken pieces. Rex huffed, curling at their feet, his tail thumping once in quiet approval. Ethan wrapped his arm around Lily, pulling her close as the sun rose through the storm's ruin. For the first time in years he felt it, the fragile, miraculous truth of salvation, that sometimes God gives you another chance. And Ethan Cole, haunted soldier, grieving father, now had a new family. One girl, one dog, and one promise kept.